You put all this stock into Ben Simmons, and then wouldn't you know, he gets hurt, and then you didn't change the offense. Then you hear quotes like, "Oh, Schroeder just came. The roster's still meshing." It's been, how many games has it been? The season's almost over. How long is it going to take for them to mesh? It's going to take 80 games for them to mesh? No, it's bullshit.
Gets it off in time. And he's got it, baby! Big time Nets win!
The only Nets fans
Man.
I mean, come on, man. Or are these guys?
Welcome back to the Only Nets Fans podcast. I'm Peter. Welcome to episode number 66. We are at the no-star break. I'm joined by the one, the only Saint from Nets Kingdom. What's going on, my friend, my brother in Nets?
Nets hell
Yeah.
right now in purgatory with you? Yes, that's where I'm going with it. What's up, brother? Thanks for having me, man.
Oh, thank you for making the time for this. I'm so fired up for this episode. I'm so happy you're joining me. Man, my timeline yesterday was filled with Mikal Bridges on a podcast and people just going in, attacking him, some people defending him. And I kind of fall sort of in the middle, but I look at this and I just can't believe how I hate to be the old guy that says this younger generation, but it's almost like these people were not around in New Jersey when we'd have losing season after losing season, when players wouldn't want to be in New Jersey, when we had, I think it was like a ticket plan promotion where we'd get a jersey, you could flip it in and out. One side would be a Nets player, the other side would be like a star on another team. And listen, I don't know if you heard the podcast. It wasn't great. I didn't love that Mikal Bridges was, I guess, talking down on Brooklyn, talking down on Nets fans, sort of. But listen, it is what it is. That's how the crowd was. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, okay, so I didn't take it as he was okay. I'm gonna back up, rewind.
Go ahead.
Okay, 50-point loss for me is like, I wouldn't say it's the last straw, because for me, I've kind of been like waiting for this current moment in Nets history to arrive, because I mean, I don't know. For me, I kind of looked at how things were going, the coaching staff. I'm like, okay, Sean Marks is Sean Marksing again here with certain things. I'm not getting good vibes here. Like it needs, everything needs to break right, and you're counting on Ben Simmons's health as a huge factor for your season with no real backup. Just kind of like set the stature for me already with the season, where I was like, yeah, this is going to be tough if we start getting injuries. So for me, when it hit that 50-point game yesterday, and then I saw his interview that he gave in the locker room, and I was like, okay. And then, so when that video came out of the interview, it just, I don't know, dude. I think people are making too much of it. It just doesn't look good after a 50-point game. I don't think he was talking down about the Nets fans or like, but he wasn't. I just felt like he could have been a little bit more sticking up, like kind of pushing back, like more like, hey, you want to know one of your bros is like, haven't you ever seen one of your friends finally get to talk to somebody and they say the right thing and you're like, you represented, like you stood 10 toes down. Like, I just felt like that's what I would have wanted from Mikal. But then if you really look at Mikal and the kind of person he is, that's just not his vibe. Like, dude's a happy-go-lucky, like shooting the three. Like, that's not his. I said it yesterday on Big Fan Breezy was doing his thing the other day on YouTube, and the analogy that I used was, you wouldn't want to send Mikal up to, like, if you ever had to send one of your friends to go talk to the cops, you probably shouldn't send Mikal, because he just doesn't have the demeanor to be able to, I don't know, that's just not him, man. Like, just firing back like that. I see the joking, but I kind of wanted more. Just like push back and be like, yo, you guys haven't won a series like something from 1973. Like, why are you puffing your chests? Like, so what? You got a good team right now, but What have you won? Like, that's what I would have wanted to hear. But at the end of the day, like, people are like, oh, he wants to be with his friends. He wants to be a New York Knick. Like, that's all too much for me, dude. I just, like, how can you blame Nets players right now? As much as we complain about the coaching stuff, how can you complain about these dudes being frustrated or just not all bought in and rah, rah, rah for the Nets when none of these players know what's going on the floor?
Man, you just dove in to a lot of stuff. So I'm gonna cover each base now. All right, I'm gonna cover each base. So referring back to the coaching and whatnot, we know that it's bad. And two things that I've been saying since the beginning of the year, I always say, why are the Heat good in the playoffs, but sucky in the regular season? Why are they always the eighth seed, seventh seed, but then you look at the Eastern Conference Finals and they're there? Why is that? Because they have a coach that does a game plan for teams. They match up very well. They know how to win a playoff series, right? It was very clear since preseason the offense was going to revolve around Ben Simmons. You put all this stock into Ben Simmons, and then wouldn't you know, he gets hurt, and then you didn't change the offense. Then you hear quotes like, "Oh, Schroeder just came. He's, the roster's still meshing." It's been, how many games has it been? The season's almost over. How long is it going to take for them to mesh? It's going to take 80 games for them to mesh? No, it's bullshit. It's very clear he doesn't have Jacque Vaughn does not have the locker room. And man, is it really just the friendship of Sean Marks and him that like this together? Like I don't know. And you know what with Mikal Bridges? I'm sure I would have no doubt in my head that he wishes he was a Knick. Why wouldn't you? Your best friends you went to college with, grew up with basically, college years, or in MSG, having a ball running the city. Bridges didn't see the last couple of years when we just killed the Knicks over like a 4-year span. So all he's been seeing is just a sweep of the Knicks just taking us and just throwing us into the water. Like, it is what it is. Like, I can't blame the guy. Do I wish he was a little more assertive, like you said? Yeah, I do. But it is what it is. And you know what?
But Pete, I'm going to interrupt you because the
Go
only
ahead.
thing that
Go for it.
I ask people that when they're hypercritical on players, right? Like, just normal everyday people like us, right? Like, none of us are top level athletes. None of us are in there knowing what it takes. None of us are
Saying,
having
saying,
to.
saying, I got to stop you. Listen,
No,
I was
let me. Okay,
in high
go on.
school. Okay, I'm an athlete. Played golf in
Yeah.
high school, so I have to say that. So,
Okay. Okay.
so
Fair,
for
fair
yourself.
enough.
Go ahead.
But the point still stands, though. The point I was leading to was put yourself in their shoes. And as much as we complain about how obvious things are not like clearly there is no organization going on. Like, nobody knows what's going on. I mean, you heard Mikal, you've heard multiple players have alluded to it all season, a level of confusion. So it's like, if you don't even know what set you're running when Ben's in there versus when now that Dennis Schroeder's here, or even when Spencer Dinwiddie was here, right? And you have that whole like, and that's the other thing. Like, just look around. You had players on the team that were like, "Yo, I should have like waiting to be traded, knew they were going to be traded, and should have been traded months and months and months ago, but you just let them wallow there." So it's like you have to ask yourself how what expectations do you have of the players when their whole coaching system seems to be a little like completely in disarray? How do you expect them to react? Or do you expect, like, fans expect them to react and say and think and do exactly with like what we want them to do? In the like, that's all I'm saying. I mean, it may not be the popular answer and people say whatever they want, but it's just like on some level, it's like I think we're going way overboard on some of these players, especially when we look at what they're having to deal with.
Listen, I've been a big before the season. I was not a Cam Thomas hater, but I was a little, reluctant. I wanted Dinwiddie to start, and I kind of obviously have moved on from that. He's obviously going to be the face of the franchise, at least in my opinion, going forward, right? He doesn't know his role, right? We still don't know what his role is. He doesn't know if he's going to be the sixth man or starting. That's that. I feel like that's a major issue just with that. And talking about Bridges, my last, I guess, defensive Bridges would be this. He has even said he was maybe like the third option in Phoenix. Now he's the main option in Brooklyn. Teams are game planning for him, and he's expected to cover one of the team's best opposing players. He's tired. And for the 100th time, I'll say this finals trip, run into the ground from the Nets last year, playing 30, 40 minutes, then going to FIBA training camp, playing in FIBA, heavy minutes, training camp, then playing every game this season, major minutes. The guy's run down. He needs a break. The best thing was him not making the All-Star game so he could rest his body for a week. I really believe that.
And the most astounding stat of all of them is that he hasn't missed a basketball game since his sophomore year in high school.
I don't know if that's a good thing, though.
I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying it's outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
It's just either way you cut it here, that should tell you something about the individual, right? Very motivated, very driven, very into routine, very trying to take care of himself. But and I don't know if he'll come out and say it, but it's you kind of alluded to it, where it's he's a great player with a lot of intangibles, but he clearly has to be in the right system, right setup for him to really flourish. And I think it's a disservice to try to make him something I think the Nets really love his persona, who he is. And I think that's part of the problem is the other side of the basketball player, as great as he is, he's just not going to be that superstar guy you need. And I don't think that's being negative towards Mikal, because I absolutely love him. I think he is the kind of player you want on your team to put, like you said, 2, 3, to put next to a guy or two guys. He's perfect. He could still start. I mean, he can do whatever. It's just, again, the Nets sold you a bag of rocks on what they thought was this is what, and they thought everybody was going to jump into it. But to go back, because I just had a thought, I'm a little stuttering here, and is remember the interviews early on by the other players when they were asking him about he's the man now. And it seemed like most of his interviews, people are like, you're the top dog now, you're in charge. And what did he always say? Most of it, the one I remember is saying, dude, I'm that's not what I am. I want to get everybody involved. I want everybody to eat. There's so much energy on this team that I want everybody to eat. And I really believe that. I mean, that's the type of player he is. But then you also have to take into consideration, now you're watching other players come up, like Cam Thomas. Did you notice he stuttered? I don't know if he did it on purpose, but he said move to the lineup. He didn't say starting. He didn't say anything else, but he was and you go back to the Ollie game. Remember the game that everybody gave credit to Ollie after the game? That was the game for me that I saw something special between Cam Thomas and Mikal. And Mikal was not being selfish. He was not trying to hold the ball. You can't blame him for whatever plays JV's running for him.
Jesus.
And that game was beautiful, man. And watching Mikal and that's what you need to promote more. Not this. He's our guiding light into the future shit. Because I think that's you're doing a disservice to Mikal. You're putting so much pressure on him. He needs to be one of the guys in the group. If that makes sense.
This is what I see with taking also what you said. Mikal Bridges is an elite off the ball player, elite. When he has Spencer Dinwiddie giving him dishing out 9 assists a night, holding onto the ball, we see his numbers will jump up. They're a lot better. His numbers are better when the ball is not in his hand. His pull-up jumper numbers are not good. It's clear. The Nets did this bet. They said, "Listen, this guy looks like a young star. Had that great couple games with us last year." And they put their coins into the Bridges bank and they said, "You know what? We think he's going to be better this year. We think he's going to take that step. He's already great off the ball, so we don't have to worry about that. We get a star next to him, man. And if this guy could just get a little bit better on the ball, man, this is a building block. And he's on a great contract. And everyone seems to love him. And he's got, that happy-go-lucky attitude. He's not like a superstar with melodrama or whatever from the last couple of years that they probably were tired of. So this is like the perfect fit here. But then what happens is he doesn't take the step. And you know what? I still think he could take that step. I think he was doing himself a disservice playing in FIBA. I think he needed the time to rest his body. And I wonder what would have happened if he did not do FIBA at all. Or if he would just take off, I don't know, take off like a week in the middle of the season. I
Yeah.
wonder.
I
don't
wish
think
he
it would
would've,
his
yeah.
body, but you know what I mean. You get the point.
I agree. I feel like, I mean, it's cool. Listen, I'm never gonna hate on somebody wanting to do something like play for your country or this
Of course
or that.
not. Of course
Like
not.
that's like, would I have liked for him to rest? Yes. Knowing as much basketball as that guy's played now. But when I look at this, I have a question because you said the next step, and I think we really need to start discussing what the reality of that next step is. Like, what does that really look like? Like, are you trying to people push it to superstar, or because I look at Mikal and then watching him when he played in Phoenix and then now here, and I just like his play styles, it just seems like you set him up, you get him going with a few open threes, he's feeling good. And then that's when the midi opens up, and that's when going to the basket opens up. And it's just like, I don't feel like, I mean, that hasn't been happening. I mean, like when we used to give Joe Harris the first shot of the game, right? Like to get him going. I'm not seeing that. It's like every day the game plan is different, and I think that has to do with injuries. That has to do with dealing with Ben Simmons and Cam Thomas. I mean, it just every time. Once again, we're back to this Steve Nash thing of like, how many different lineups can I throw out there versus starting and throughout the game. We're to the point where nobody develops any continuity throughout the season really. And then you wind up with 50-point losses because of it. So it just, until a clear direction is like found either through coaching or the front office or something, and they like players and coaches, if they find some magic sphere that gives them the power to put like to make this work, great. But I'm not holding my breath anymore. I've seen that movie. You need to fire JV, and as much as people like Sean Marks, you need to move on. It's the only way you get out of it.
Yeah, that's like the perfect transition. We saw what happened at the All-Star break. We saw what happened at the trade deadline. My hopes and dreams of getting Murray dead. And not only did we not get a D'Lo, which some people were clamoring for, but man, we got totally blindsided. No Dorian Finney-Smith trade for 2 first-rounders. No all-star point guard coming in. Dennis Schroeder comes in, and he's a nice stopgap. But I would be remiss to say I wasn't disappointed and extremely frustrated because this team badly needed a point guard that wanted to play for the Nets. Man, a downhill point guard would open up Bridges' game, and once Bridges' games opens up, CJ's game opens up.
Yep.
CT gets some help, so he doesn't have to get doubled all the time. He doesn't have to get blitz off a pick and roll or something. You know what I mean? What did you think about the trade deadline? Well, what grade do you give for those two trades of getting Schroeder and then Royce going to Phoenix for 3 second round picks?
It went between D plus and C minus a lot for me. Like, because it just, nah, dude, because you waited way too long, even though you turned Spencer into Dennis, right? Like, because I was very nervous that they weren't going to, that he wasn't going to go after a point guard, right? But I think it was beyond obvious with Ben and his health, like you had to do that. So I was surprised that he actually did it for once, like got you what you needed. And it just, so, and I'm not like, I don't dislike Dennis. I just like, and his game's not the worst in the world, but it was just like, I don't know. It's just Dennis. I felt you're just trading. I feel like you're shuffling mid for mid.
You know
And
how I described it? I'm going to cut you off for 1 second. I'm sorry to
That's
cut you
fine.
off. This is how I described it to someone else. I said, we're in the water and we're just flailing our arms and we're not moving anywhere. We're just stuck in that one spot. We're just flailing our arms. That's
I
it.
mean,
Right?
but the trade deadline really, I mean, outside of turning Royce O'Neal is the one guy though that I think his value was about right. I just
agree.
I think, I mean, a lot of people were upset that we gave up a first to get him to begin with, right? And then it became, well, he's got to be worth a first. Oh, and then somebody would float to like, no, I think about what we got for him was about right. And could you have, if you could, and this is my main thing about the deadline and ultimately why I'm disappointed, is you had, and it's been said a million times, but you had opportunity from last year when you acquired DFS, when you acquired Spencer, when you got all these new players. There were teams that were offering you stuff that will not be offered again because of the CBA and how things are going. Like, you had an opportunity to cash in on these players, and if that was your intention, see, that's my other thing. Like, if you knew you were going to trade some of these players at the trade deadline, like, are you that ridiculous that if somebody offered you 3 or 4 first round picks for DFS, like, you're going to say no? Like, what are we doing here? Like, I love DFS, but if somebody said, here's 3 firsts for DFS, I'm like, hopefully you're going to a contender there, buddy.
Do you think that actually happened though?
I don't. What do you mean? That somebody offered 3?
Yeah, for
Are you
example, or
so,
even
so
someone offered
basically?
2. Let's say did
Okay.
someone offer 2? I don't know. We don't know.
I mean, I'm not the man in the know all the time, but I'm pretty sure somebody could answer that better. But I'm sure a couple of teams have offered in the range of 1 to 3 picks for various couple of players that we got traded for last season. I can't imagine that you didn't take. I mean, but then again, how many times did they tell us when the Nets always made it a point for a report to come out to say, hey, yeah, these guys called, but we said no. So you can't, I mean, the Nets have a team full of players that other teams would want to fit next to a championship team. We're like a team full of, I don't know if you want to call it I don't know. It's like we could be a farm team for championship teams looking for that one guy, because we have a lot of great guys on great deals that would fit in great with a lot of teams. But it's like, I don't, ultimately for me, that's why the trade deadline is, because Marks has there's enough information out there that Marks is not good at trading players at their highest value. To me,
I think you're
and some
right.
of it's out of his hands, some of it's not. But there's a lot of evidence there that shows he sits on his hands too much.
So how do you, man? I forgot who said this report, and I feel so bad because I hate mentioning reports and not like saying who said it. But there was a report that Marks is rather difficult to make deals with. That he might be on the rich end when trying to sell off a piece, trying to get a little bit too much from another team, and that teams are kind of turned off, or that it's talked about widely that he's tough. It's tough to make a deal with the guy. Like, how do you feel about that? And how do you feel about Claxton? I was shocked. I had 3 different people come to me and tell me, Pete, Clax is gone. One person even gave me a team.
But didn't I just see a report or something this morning that somebody said that the Clax wants the Nets and the Nets want Clax? Like, I'll see it when I believe it, because you're going into the offseason once again playing with fire with a player. And who knows if the Nets are going to pony up and just be like, here's what you asked for. You know, I have to believe Clax's agent's coming to the table saying, hey, we played ball 2 years ago and took the deal that you threw out there because he wants to be here. Now it's time to pay the piper. Will that happen? I don't know. What was the first thing before Clax? You were talking. Oh, Sean Marks.
Yeah.
I think Sean Marks. If that report is true, right? Like, we'll just assume that the report is true. I know what you're talking about. I don't remember where it came from either. But I'm thinking, like, I think Sean Marks is feeling himself a little too much, to be honest.
I think you're right.
Because, like, I give him credit for when he took over after Prokhorov and the team. Like, they did magic with nothing. And they put together something where you were like, okay, I see a direction finally. We're building slowly. And we kept getting lucky with good picks that fans, like, we say what you want, but at one point we loved everybody on that team, man. We just loved the team. And if you're truly a fan, like, you saw the rebuild on its way up. So you had something to feel good about. And then it was like, and then we just got slammed with superstars. And it was just like, dude, a Net fan going from the bottom of the barrel, and then within a few seasons, you're looking at Kevin Durant and Kyrie, like, holy shit. And then not long after that, he's making a trade for Harden. It's like, I just think everybody I think everybody got drunk way too much on the Kool-Aid and whatever Jesus juice, whatever you want to call it. Like, people got drunk high on their own supply. And I think they forgot about some basics of, like, hey, I get it. You got this great team, but maybe first-year coach Steve Nash is not the guy to lead it to the championship. You missed on that mark. You missed on the transition between Kenny Atkinson and the new group, and it just snowballed. So I think dude's a little high on his own supply. And, do I know if he has a contract or not? I don't know. But I sure as hell hope he doesn't. I hope he's GMing for his contract, and I hope that shit's on the line. And we'll never know this, but I hope to God Joe Tsai chewed his ass out a little bit.
I would be shocked if that never happened. What am I trying to say? I would be shocked if he did get chewed out. That's what I'm trying to say here.
Okay.
I would be shocked, and I'm going to tell you why. Tax apron, keeping the team at the mid. Like, this is I'm going to reveal the secret, everybody. This is the plan. Under the tax apron next year, we don't want to suck too bad, because if we suck a lot and are at the bottom of the league, it's going to be worse in the arena. The opposing teams are going to take over. Tickets are not going to be sold.
Right now, right? You mean like right now, Pete?
Exactly. It's going to be even worse. It would be even worse. But you obviously make a great point. And he was trying to kind of say, you know what? We'll be competitive, whatever that looks like, quote unquote. I'm making air quotes. We're going to be competitive. Try to make the playoffs as like an 8 seed. The fans will still come. We'll be under the apron. And it's a win-win-win. I save money because we're not going to win this year. So I'm not going to go into the tax because I just paid millions upon millions during the 7-Eleven era. So we're not going to do that again. I think the team lost $5 million last year. So obviously if we're not going to win, I'm not going to spend. Okay. Tax apron keeps us lower. Tickets are still being sold as a team pretends to be competitive, which it's really not, like you mentioned. And we're going to be the 2025 offseason champions. That's it. And there's going to be lots of ifs. Obviously, there's someone that Marks might be looking at somehow, some way, because I don't know how you could risk not having like a point guard a little better than Schroeder. I like Schroeder. Don't get me wrong. He's like Jeremy Lin from a couple years ago when we were like kind of transitioning. Like, he's not going to be the full-time guy going forward, but
He's
until
not
we
going to
get
be
that
here.
guy,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, that's the plan. That's the plan.
But that's the problem. If you look at this team, like if you're now that you brought it there, like if I'm looking at this team as a whole, and I have to believe there is a little nervousness coming from that front office about cashing in all the assets once again. So I think that has caused them to clutch their pearls a little bit more than they should. But if we're being honest, right, and clearly if they're telling you we're not rebuilding, the only other thing is to keep going with what you got and wait for the free agent potentially, or find the trade, right? And that is just like at some point, that is not like, and if you're losing while saying you're not rebuilding, that's not good, man. Like that's not good. Like it'd be different if you had told me that, like for instance, say we did get Ime Udoka and we were kind of having somewhat closer to the season that we were, I wouldn't feel like in dire. Because what I would feel like probably what would happen if a coach like Ime got here, I think that coach would be a lot more vocal about what he needs and what he doesn't need. And like you can see the effect that he has on a team. So I wouldn't feel so bad if things were like, we weren't having the most amazing feeling like season, or if say we squeaked in the last the God, what is that called? This is a
Playing.
perfect. Yeah, there you go. Like even if we got into the last play-in spot and then got bounced out, I really wouldn't care because I know we're in a direction. I know we have a good coach, and I'm pretty damn sure I would see a lot more progression from Mikal and Cam and other people than we do now. The fact that some players like Cam Thomas have been able to excel in the net system since he's been drafted by them is pretty damn impressive, which tells me that if a guy like that is able to play like he is now, despite I don't care about his defense, I don't care about this. Like, look at how he's playing with what he's had to deal with. And you can imagine that guy with a legit coach and like no crap and no back and forth, this and that. Like, nah, dude, that kid would be a lot better. I don't know, man. It just, I don't know if this is like I don't know where you want to go next with this, but I don't have a lot of hope right now for this team at all. Like I don't have the 8 days off. JV said, "Oh, we'll just take 8 days. I believe in these guys. It'll get figured out." I don't have that faith.
I'm shocked he's not fired yet, but I'll bring this up. I think what adds to this season's frustration are the losses that were self-inflicted, right? The defense not being changed up when clearly teams are just taking advantage and knocking threes like they're like in practice. And how many games do you think JV has cost the Nets? Really, seriously.
Can you share?
I could say at least 5.
Can you pull up a? No, I'm joking. Like I was gonna say, pull up our schedule for the season with all the no. That's a good question, man. I wonder. Like I'm sure we could go back and find that, but I kind of have looked at every game the Nets have played this season as a combination of the ones that we've lost. It's always been a combination of like JV head scratcher choices with certain players or lack thereof giving players an opportunity after you said you would. And you think playing a player 53 seconds in a game is giving them an opportunity. And then, like, if you break down the whole time that Giles was out, I mean, that Day'Ron was out, that Giles supposedly, air quotes again, had an opportunity to earn playing time. And I think it was like a total, I think the only, up into the one game where he got like 10 minutes, I think we were sitting at somewhere around 15 minutes when I remember first asking that. Like, Cypher went on there and he calculated all his minutes, and it was sad that the dude had only been given that much time when you have a coach telling you he's hardworking, he's da. So
Yeah, he's playing the dude.
it just,
He's playing the dude.
it just, 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 it Yeah, it just like that's why ultimately, bro, like when I look at this, that's why I am not the guy that's going to really be blasting the players on the timeline. I'm not going to be blasting them. It's a different generation. These guys are younger. They don't play the game or respond the way I remember it when I was a kid, and that's okay. It's just part of life. But it's like I'm not going to hate on it until I actually see a head coach that can get through to these players and get on a game plan. And Sean Marks can either pull his head out of his ass, or we get another Sean, like another Sean Marks. I'm so used to having that GM. Until we get another GM, it's like I don't have a lot to really. It's becoming hard for me to speculate on things now, or what ifs, or this or that. Like it's really becoming not fun to talk about the
It's a
Nets.
chore.
Like, yeah, like the only reason why I'm here, Pete, is because I like you, bro.
Well, thank you,
I
man. I
don't, dude.
appreciate
Like,
you
I
too.
don't want to talk about the Nets as much. Like, I've been helping with the spaces, and I know people like it, and I've been laid up for my surgery. But if like I'm now that I'm moving and I'm getting healthier, if then like if I if I get any inkling that this is gonna, then the first week or two after the All-Star break is more of the same of what we just watched. Oh yeah, I'm taking a large step back. I'm not announcing my retirement, but I'm definitely going to take a large step back in how much time I invest, talking and watching, because at some point, like, it's like if you're in a relationship and one person wants to go to couples therapy and the other doesn't, like, you got your answer. So the Nets need couples therapy between their
Yeah.
players, coaches, and front office and owner. They all need to sit in a room and figure out and just start letting shit fly, because whatever, keeping your mouth quiet and not saying what needs to be said, like somebody's got it in there has got to start saying the shit that needs to be said.
Oh yeah. As I was saying earlier, does anybody have a pulse over there? Because if me and you, fans, can see all this shit from the TV, it can't be any more obvious that these things are going on. If I mentioned the thing with the Mikal saying, "Oh, when Ben's out, not changing the offense or whatever," right? I've been saying that for how long? For months. We've been saying the same things in spaces in these podcasts for months, and we're just fans. If the fans are saying this, that's a real issue.
But it's
That's a
not just
real
fans,
issue.
Pete. It's not just fans. Sorry to interrupt you, but dude,
Go
I've
ahead.
watched. Do you know how many times I've deliberately listened to the other announcers sometimes just to hear what they have to say about the Nets? And then you'll
God.
hear random podcast people, like, you're hearing it. Like, people are like announcers, like old NBA players, like everybody's like kind of laughing at us. And like
Embarrassing.
we're not getting, and like the organization's like, no, everything's good around here. You guys are like, because when that chicken shit um halftime interview with Sean Marks, I thought that was chicken shit a little bit personally. I felt like there should have been a little bit more planning, a little bit more opening. I can't wait for the if they haven't done it yet, the season tickets guys where they get to sit down and talk to them.
Ah,
I wonder how that's gonna go, or if they're even gonna do that. But it's like, dude, we're getting clowned by everybody, and it's obvious. So it's not like, because you'll hear people say what you say, like, hey, all the fans can see it, but then somebody will always go, oh, well, you're just fans. Like, what the hell do you know? And it's like, nah, dude,
exactly.
like, it's pretty obvious what's going on, that things are not all hunky dory and the vibes aren't good. And, your whole building a culture shit. Like, come on, bro. Like, right. I don't see a culture. Yeah. The players like each other. I believe that 100%, but I don't put that on Sean Marks and I don't put that on JV. These guys like each other from outside of the basketball. It just, but you can clearly tell these guys are not like, you can tell when good basketball is being played because they enjoy it. They thrive on it. They like it. These players have been in it their whole lives, from whether you put them in at like a small 8-year-old thing. And if they've been playing into the dude, they love it. The worst thing for you could do to a player like that is put him in and have just the worst confusing game plan. And then go in front of the media and every time somebody asks you, well, so what happened? Well, the players just haven't figured out my game plan yet.
That's insane. He does that, by the way.
He
That's
does it
like
all the time.
insane.
It is. And then you hear, but Mikal said it yesterday, but I didn't believe it when he said it. He said that I heard him mention something similar about learning the game plan. And it's like, but if you're telling me that there is, like, I get it. There will be multiple different game plans that coaches will have for various scenarios and situations. But you've got to find some level of continuity with the starting lineup, running things a similar way so that when a new player comes in, if it's Ben for Schroeder, we're not reinventing the wheel on the fly. Something's not working. I'm sorry. Just whatever style or brand of basketball that they're wanting to play, it hasn't worked, and I don't think it's going to work. And I don't think we're just going to raw ourselves out of and believing out of this problem. And I think that's the other thing. Like, if you're telling me those are the words from your head coach, that's his best explanation, then we're in trouble. And I don't think we're being doom and gloom. I hate people like, oh, you're depressed. No, dude, like, maybe you're just blind. Like, you know what I mean?
So I pride myself on being a rational sports fan. I'm not the guy that says in the first half of the year, people say, man, this is a must-win game. They just lost 5 games in a row. I'm like, we're 30 games in. If they lose the next 5 games, win the next 20. Obviously they're not going to, but point is, you don't get too high, you don't get too low. And that's how I try to be even keel with this stuff. And it's just frustrating. And it just leads me to think we're going into the second half now. Is it going to be a playoff push or development? What do you think?
I mean, if you can't win basketballs, like, forget fucking a playoff push. Like, I don't even, like, me, honestly, I think anybody talking about playoffs right now is hilarious.
We're only 2.5 games out.
What's sad is I think we have a better team. It's just, I really think the coaching, that whatever they're having these players do it's not it. Because there's no way you can tell me with some of the quality of players we have on our team that we should not be able to play better than we are. And I know some of that, the self-inflicted gunshot wounds, or whatever you want to call it, that we have, coupled with just but even games we've won that have like looked remotely good at times, even those were very odd, and they were usually against a much shittier team than us. Yeah. So did we get a couple in the beginning? Yeah. I mean, I don't see, I also am one of those people that doesn't like the first 10, 15 games of the season. I'm kind of like, I don't take it too seriously, because there's teams that have started out real shitty and you're like, that team's way better than that, and they're going to be knocking at the door for contenders. So I don't know. I don't put a whole lot of stock into how hot we started. It did feel good, but then it was very quickly you saw who the coach was, and then
what's the starting lineup? Oh yeah, sorry.
No. But that's the thing. Like, all the different starting lineups, the injuries, and then it's like, see, and this is the other part of a coach that I like. You've got to be able to have this shit under control. That if you do lose a big piece like Ben, like, you've got to either be able to have the part and be able to ask for it to fix it, or you've got to be able to smart enough to have a game plan where you just, instead of just winging it, because that's what it feels like. I feel like we're just winging it right now until a star comes.
When you have KD, when you have Kyrie, you could use the same offensive game plan every night against teams, right? When you can't. And who? Just taking your guess now, who do you think JV is going to put out as his starting 5 next game?
I think it'll be Ben, Ben, Cam, Mikal. I don't know if the DFS, I liked, again, we did it to DFS this year. I don't know if anybody noticed, but he started out really good. And then I think he may have had like a game or two that wasn't that great. And then he just got banished. And I know there were some injuries in there, but I felt like the way he started the season was great. And I just feel like he's another player that I bet you if you honestly asked him, like, how have you felt? Like, I bet you he would feel a little jerked around by like just confused or mixed messages of like, well, I was in the starting lineup, then I'm not. And then I get this and that. And it's like, I don't know yet if I kind of am moving towards DFS over CJ.
You know what was
you
know what,
CJ
CJ
could go either way. I just like, but I also wonder if because I kind of feel like there might have been a conversation of like, hey, yeah, I know we said we were probably going to trade you, but you stayed, and I don't. Who knows what that relationship is? We don't even know if he's going to be traded in the offseason. So I don't know. I guess my thing is if you know somebody's going to be here and you're not going to trade them, just play those dudes more than everybody else, please. Just start now. And if you are trading DF, fine, fuck it. Start Cam CJ. You know what I mean? But there's no reason Cam Thomas should not be in the lineup anymore. Like, I don't ever want to see Dennis Schroeder starting over Cam Thomas this season. That would be insane.
It would. You're right. Last question. The Nets make the playoffs if
they fire JV right now and put in Kevin Ollie as the coach.
I would like that. All right, let's get some plugs in for you, Saint.
Hey, just check out Nets Kingdom on YouTube. People have been kind of coming at us a little bit I'm going to stick up for Nets Kingdom. We haven't been around like we used to. Haven't been doing the games. No, we haven't left. We're still all Nets fans. We love the Nets. But guess what? Life happens. Okay? Life happens. People grow up. Some of us are older and younger in Nets Kingdom, and they're at stages of college, new careers. Like, you know what I'm saying? So we're there. We're coming back. People still show love, and I appreciate it. I want to get Nets Nation back to like a kumbaya. That's my other. I want less fighting. I'm hoping that I'm going to keep pushing that agenda, but I don't think it'll happen, especially with New Yorkers and people from Jersey and back east. Like, good luck with that. But outside of that, man, if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's SaintNet1. I don't like followers, just fans. That's it, fans. I'm a fan of the Nets, and you're a fan of the Net.
You can follow me at NetFansYouKnow on YouTube, on Twitter. This podcast obviously comes out once a week. Every Monday, I do a live stream podcast episode called Fireside Nets with Spen Harris. You can check that out at Fireside Nets. Have a great day. Have a great night. If you're having lunch right now, enjoy your lunch. And let's go Nets. We're out.
Peace.